Hey guys, welcome to Learning from Singapore Entrepreneurs, the podcast where we go behind the scenes of what it actually takes to build a startup. I'm Shoaib.
And I'm Tedman.
And we are the co-founders of Nuggt. We know what's it like to build a company out of nothing. And throughout our journey, we have learned many important things from many wonderful people. So through this podcast, we aim to bring all these brilliant minds in the Singapore startup ecosystem to share their journey and experience with you.
Each week, we sit down with founders and ecosystem builders to hear the honest and unfiltered stories. Whether you're building your own company or thinking of starting one, we're glad you're here and we've got great conversations lined up. Let's jump straight in.
Hello everyone, welcome to Learning from Singapore Entrepreneurs podcast session. Today we have with us Jit, who is from Block 71. And he has been around in the startup ecosystem for quite a while. I think one person that you should talk to can give you a lot of good nuggets is Jit. So welcome Jit to the podcast. Maybe you can start a bit about how did you end up in entrepreneurship?
Cool. Yeah. Very cool setup, guys. Thanks for having me. Love what you guys are doing, and thanks for inviting me on this podcast. I'm Jit, so program manager here at Block 71 Singapore. Basically part of NUS Enterprise, and I've been in the innovation entrepreneurship scene for the past 8-9 years.
Wow, 8-9 years.
Yeah,
that's
8-9 years. Wow. I don't reveal my age, but yeah, it's been a while. And how I stumbled into this space was really in my early years. I started out at a company where I was sort of a founder. So there was a project that was thrown onto the table, and they're like, "Hey, we've got this problem." Basically, the Salvation Army back then had no foot traffic coming into the space. So there's this the founder of the consulting company reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to build something. Can you build something for us? Let's work together and figure out how can we." So have you heard of General Assembly, like the workshop?
Actually, I attended quite a few.
Yeah. Okay. So I had the idea, right? So they had classrooms at the Salvation Army. What we did was we paid to renovate those rooms. They were quite run down, so we spruced it up.
Yeah.
And basically what I was doing was I created this thing called One Stop Academy.
Yeah.
And it's basically a workshop, a place to host workshops.
Yeah.
And then at the same time it's for a charitable cause, because at the end of the day we'll give you coupons to spend at the
GA there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, the General Assembly there. Not the GA, but the Salvation Army there. SA. The Salvation Army there. Yeah. So the Salvation Army has a store that sells secondhand goods. So we give them coupons to spend at the second-hand goods store. And basically what I was doing was curating mentors and also creating the website from scratch, building social media from scratch, and then the whole thing, right? Pricing strategy, figuring out how to bring participants on board. And it's really agnostic. There's no vertical that we sort of focused in back then. So I was doing all that myself, but slowly I had the opportunity to also hire interns. So we had three interns working for us at one point of time.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something I started on my own. I would say it's more of a social enterprise per se. Then after I left that company, or I stopped doing that stint, I heard of Y Combinator.
Okay.
So I heard of the good stuff Y Combinator was doing in the US. Stumbled onto a couple of their videos on YouTube. It's is there something similar in Singapore? And then I started researching into the Singapore space, who are the accelerators, who are the incubators here. And that's why I landed into a program manager role or program lead role at Startup X. So back then they were running a huge program with Temasek. Temasek Foundation. So we were running a hackathon to accelerator program with them.
Okay.
So I was the program manager there, basically curating curriculum and then also executing that said curriculum, right? The whole idea there was Temasek wanted to invest in startups from the beginning, right? Impact driven startups from the beginning. So how could they incubate these startups, bring these ideas about, and then incubate these ideas to the stage where they are scaled up and investable. So it's a whole really end-to-end incubator. From ideation
all the way
to investments. So that's what I was doing there. Then I shifted my focus to the German market. So that's when I joined Start2 Group, previously known as German Entrepreneurship. So I was doing more market entry, market discovery sort of programs. So assisting German startups with lending into the Japanese market. Initially it was Korean and Japan, but later on I focus my efforts onto the Japanese market.
Yeah.
So I was growing the mentor network in Japan.
Yeah.
Executing and facilitating the workshops, the master classes there for the program as well, and then of course the in-person portion of the program where they actually do spend a week.
right?
Yeah, they do spend a week in Japan. And later part, we won a tender with the Japanese metropolitan government to actually do the same thing, but the other way around. So Japan to Germany.
Oh, wow. So that's okay.
Yeah. So I spent 3 years there.
Yeah.
And then got promoted to senior program manager, and then we decided like, hey, I wanted to do something more closer to home. So then I brought back. That's how I landed in Top 71. And that's why I meet you guys.
That's right. Wow, that's a quite interesting journey. Start to Go is another one. Like they're also at Block. It's near
Block 75.
Block
Orange
75.
Building.
Yeah.
Orange Building.
I didn't know that you were there before. How was your experience there?
Yeah, I know the cool guys. Shout out to Start to all my family there, my ex-family members. Like they're all like really cool colleagues, and I loved what I was doing there.
Wow. Okay. So it's been quite a journey for you. Yeah. So now that brings us to Block 71. What do you do there now?
So at Block 71, what we do is differently from the other parts of organizations is we have this thing called incubation, right?
Yeah.
It's not very commonly known right now. Like we do have the opportunity, we do have the luxury of space to incubate startups like yourself. So that's one facet of things that I manage there, program management for incubation, and then also programs.
Yeah.
So programs are your run-of-the-mill accelerator programs, right?
Yeah.
But we try to make it sort of like impactful.
Yeah.
So we work with different corporates to conceptualize accelerator programs for different for different needs of the clients, right? Let's say for Microsoft, they came to us and they were looking for best-in-class AI startups.
Correct.
So we created a AI accelerator.
Yeah.
So the Gen AI program just concluded.
Yeah.
And we're working for a Japanese conglomerate called TIS right now for their accelerator program, which is slightly different.
Yeah.
So it's all customized for the clients, and also at the end of the day, the main customers they were serving are startups like yourself.
Yeah. Wow. So in a sense that you find corporates, so then you find the problem statement.
Correct.
And then the startups are connected to those problem statements.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not problem statements that we specifically put out. It's just like the client, what sort of solutions are they looking for? Or are they're just looking for the next big thing, right?
Yeah.
To invest in as well. Sometimes it can be as rudimentary as that.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. I mean, of course, we got sister companies like PS71 who does the Smart Pod Challenge.
Right.
We got the TIG folks that does cybersecurity driven challenges. So we do have other like business units within Block 71, within NUS Enterprise that also sort of services startups and also different clients.
Yeah. I think that's a good model, right? Because that way you only kind of you surface out the problems that are validated, right?
I mean, we call it demand-driven innovation.
That sounds about right, actually. So, so a lot of startups have this question, right? What goes on behind the scenes of these incubators, right? Like, how do you, maybe if I get a bit juicy, like, what do you look for in a startup? Maybe
what do we look for? Characteristics of successful startups, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the standard answer you usually get is like, what we look for? We're looking for startups that actually secured some sort of traction already. Have somehow figured out product market fit. It's a very ambiguous word, product market fit. But that's what we kind of look for. Also characteristics of a founder, right? Are they a second-time founder? Are they first-time founder? Do they have the background in the space they're working in, right? Let's say if you're a deep tech startup, biotech kind of solution that you're working on, are you a biotech graduate? So these are sort of, or at least do you have somebody in the team that has the expertise? These are some sort of like the really first layer kind of traits that we look for. And then in the interview, when we interview you guys, we basically figure out how coachable you are just through our conversations with you. And that also serves as like some sort of like red flags. If you're not coachable, then shouldn't be joining an incubator or accelerator program.
Definitely.
If you are really hard and fast about the direction you're heading to, we've got some startup founders who are like this, right? They only know path A and they're not willing to take feedback or
That's troublesome.
And I think I also like to point out, like in a startup life cycle, right? Or in the whole grand scheme of things, you're going to get feedback from 1,001 people.
Exactly.
But it's up to you guys to actually decipher the feedback, right? You're going to get 10 people telling you 10 different things.
Yeah, correct.
And you're going to focus and think in and be able to discern which is the advice you actually want to take and if it's applicable to you at this moment.
Yeah.
What are some advice that could be applicable to you in the future?
Yeah.
What are some advice that downright just ridiculous for you to just filter out, right? Yeah.
There's a lot of like that. Yeah, you need to just filter them out.
Yeah.
So you look for like these kind of characteristics in the founders in a sense that like, I mean, yeah, there's one, like there's the industry, right? Which industry they work in.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important ones in a sense that like, do they know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you go ahead and see like, are they coachable? But then what's like something internal that like, you know, maybe startup founders don't know about, they use like secretly look for?
There's nothing really secret about it, lah. There's no, there's no sort of like, secret requirement that we have to check out of the box. No, nothing like that. Yeah.
So as long as founders stick to the fundamentals, as in a sense like have some experience in the industry, have some sort of traction, and be a bit open-minded, then they're more than okay to like basically go for it.
But at Block 71, we've got this. We support startups in all stages of their life cycle.
Yeah.
Right? So the really early stage founders spinning off an idea, they can actually join the Hangar, which is one of our incubators.
Yeah.
So they don't really have to have like real traction doing that.
Yeah.
It's just a really good business plan, a really good solid problem that they are solving. Actually, what we look for is the problem big enough, right? That's one thing I alluded. That really basically skipped my mind just now. But the problem they're solving, is it really a real problem? Real problem, as people say.
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, then there's actually no reason not to start, right? In the sense that if you get support all the way from ideation stage, then people should really think about like.
But the problem is, and you guys know as well, right? Once you build a startup, the initial idea or the initial problem they actually sort of thought about or hypothesized about, isn't really the real problem.
Never.
It's the pivots they're all doing across. And that's what we see as well with startups, early stage founders, right? They're pivoting like 9-10 times, and that's what we want to see. They either pivot or they end and they kill the project and start another one fresh, right? Or they pivot if it's within the same vertical. So there's nothing like, you can't sit down and develop a crazy amazing business plan or pitch deck and then that's gonna be the
It's not like, you know, I have this project I'm gonna do and then this is gonna be a company.
Running a startup is an iterative process.
I totally
You're always
agree.
iterating.
Even like we have been trying to like go through so many feedback.
Right. Because at the start you may identify like, oh, this is like the specific problem we may be targeting. But then once you launch it out there, you'll start asking for feedback and like, you know, actually start to get users and everything. Then you realize, oh, actually this is not what I'm solving, or maybe like they are actually looking for something else. And like you need to iterate, you need to adapt in a sense. Like in a sense you need to fit the market as well.
But sometimes it's dangerous, especially living in Singapore, right? Who are you asking? A population of what? And then your population already the 6 million folks, or I don't know how many, maybe it's now 9 million. I'm not sure the population.
5 million, 5 to 6 million.
Okay.
Could check me, anyone in the comment section, but I think it's 5 to 6 million.
But just looking at that, like you're servicing these folks, right? Because you're currently here geopolitically, geolocatively, you're located here in Singapore, and you're asking your friends. That's already like a small, close-knit group already. You're not asking like a wider. So the feedback you're getting is actually just from like-minded folks, per se, right?
True, that's true.
But for yourself, I know you're building like a software, right? A SaaS solution. So it's sort of like then again you can actually it's large scale. You can deploy it anywhere around the world.
That's true.
So having the touch points, you are in Singapore, but having the touch points in different countries as well, different sort of platforms like Reddit or wherever you guys are. And then making sure it actually addresses the problems of people across the globe, I guess, as a software.
I think that's very important because in Singapore, it's like if you say like, oh yeah, I dominate the market in Singapore, but then the dominating the market in Singapore in itself cannot sustain you as a startup. So you do need to at some point of time look outside. I think one of the challenges that most people also see is like the moment you go out of Singapore into the neighboring region, I think to me at least, language suddenly becomes like a big barrier. In a sense that like, I think that like, because to me in a sense that let's say that if I want to go out and I want to do business, right? Of course, like as a SaaS, I would say that like everyone can speak English and everything. But in Singapore, for example, how we started out is like talking to people, right? They keep on talking to people, establish like that rapport, right? Like go in. But then when the cultures and the language change and they're not very comfortable in English, right? At a very early stage, it actually becomes a problem. Because they don't know about you, and then you go and try to like be there. But then I will even go off to say like you cannot make them laugh, and then the thing becomes like very awkward. And then you cannot take it next time.
I mean, you're talking about Southeast Asia, you're gonna get people who actually speak English. So Southeast Asia isn't a concern. It's like once you reach the countries where they only speak one language, Japan, for example.
Japan,
So that's where you're gonna run into troubles. But there's ways to circumvent this, like for example, creating resources that are already adaptable to the Japanese or Korean language, right? Your one-pager documents that you can readily hand out. Establishing a sales representative or hiring just a sales rep, someone to work on a commission basis. If you close a deal, you get paid. So there's many ways to actually circumvent this. And that brings me to actually, I was thinking about this as well. At an accelerator or incubator, like one problem that we have is trying to instill that think global from day one for startups, especially founders in Singapore. Like when they build something, they're always thinking about like their existing customers within Singapore.
That's
but I think it's a very hard mindset shift to make for local founders to think global from day one, because they themselves are actually haven't maybe experienced the world, haven't gone traveling much, don't really know much about the cultures overseas and their target market, customers overseas as well. So that's something but we have programs like the NOC program, right? We give students like
ways to explore overseas markets.
Correct,
and everything. Well, I think that's true. I think that having that global mindset from the start is very important.
If you're a founder, you should be going out there and figuring out, like, join NOC.
NOC is the easiest way you can go out. So explore
the entrepreneurial worlds across the globe
and work in a startup overseas. So that's like amazing.
So now that we have talked about like the mindsets, like especially for those who has maybe established themselves a little bit more. So like what are maybe some of the things that I think aspiring entrepreneurs will need to think about? Like before they even like maybe they just discovered a problem that they will want to solve, right? So like what would maybe be some of the things you would encourage them to think about before like embarking on a journey like this?
I think before starting on a journey like this, you should really go down to your why. What is your? I think in Japan they have this word like ikigai. What's your purpose? What's your why? What's your reason for doing it? And if you are truly just in it for the money, I'll say
no point. Better things out there.
You probably lose more money than you actually. Initial part, you probably, and not everybody starts off with a successful venture. You probably fail couple before you strike gold, right? There's probably 3 businesses that you close down before actually running into a successful one. And also, I think the founders these days are blessed with resources. Like I think in the early days, let's look back at 2000s, like when there was no Gen AI, there was no ChatGPT to ask, and no resources out there. Like Y Combinator has amazing resources.
Exactly.
Another platform for Blocks71, we also have like a internal platform we call the Blocks71 OS.
Really? So is it accessible to everyone? Or?
It's accessible to incubatees and then
definitely.
So the more reasons to join.
We've got all the mentors there. We've got all the resources there. Videos, masterclasses that we host. We basically put that in the OS something as well.
Okay, that's quite cool. I think that's very important, especially like having something in the Singapore context. Very important.
I think community is important as well. So that's what Blocks71 brings them to the table, right? How often can you just go next door if you're, let's say, you're working at WeWork and like come into a fellow founder? You want to bounce idea off like fellow founders. You want to be in the same fish tank as these guys, fellow founders, right?
Right.
Because the ideas there and people who are actually facing the same challenges as you on a daily basis, or maybe challenges that you might face in the future, that they already sort of overcame
then
and are able to actually point out to you. That's something that I think we're lacking in the Singapore Asian context. We're always like very shy and we don't
go into our keep to ourselves, slowly go back.
Yeah, that's why when we talk about Germans or we talk about the US people, the US folks, like they might not have the best solutions. They're just super good at marketing and super good at selling themselves.
I think it's like a cultural thing as well. Like for them, like going out there, maybe like talking and really like learning, really putting themselves out there. It maybe compared differently to like the Asian side of like the startup culture, right? It's like we're a bit more shy. Like when we approach like people, it's like oh, like what if they reject us? You know, like the fear is always there. Compared to like the way like Americans do it. Like, hey, how do you like this? You don't like it? Maybe tell me why. Kind of vibes.
Yeah. Another word of advice for the startups who are wanting to start out. The question was like starting out, right? Like,
starting out.
What sort of advice can we give? You don't have to have a ready solution on the table to actually start working on your startup, right? You just basically can have a wait list. You can start creating like a resource, right? Let's say like a newsletter or something for people to subscribe to. Figure out like what are they sort of subscribing to, what takes them, right? And then from there develop the solution according to that. Or you can also right now vibe code your initial product out. And and like test it already. You iterate it from day one. You can launch a product in one day right now with the onset of like GPTs.
I want to then bring back to the same thing, right? Like the pre-generative AI era and then now, right? So what's your take?
They had life difficult, man. Life was tough back then, man. I guess validating was much more difficult back then compared to now. Validating an idea. Right now you have the world at your fingertip.
Exactly.
You got so many resources to actually tap onto. I guess that's the main thing. Everything else is pretty much the same. Nothing has changed. And businesses that do well are always the business that during the gold rush. The person that made money was the person selling the shuffles, right?
It's true.
So that same ideology sort of carried through from back then to now.
I think there's like at this stage, in a sense that like if you don't get your prototype out within the first week of you thinking something, I think you're already too late. In a sense that like I really feel that like in a sense that like the moment that you think about like saying that like I have this idea, right? Then you cut things off until to the bare minimum. You use like all the AI tools. You sit down for a week. You create something, and then you can immediately go out to
Correct. Test.
Test right there. As long as like you said, as small as a wait list, right?
Correct.
If you want to create like a website, like you don't need to go on to like Wix and have a very standard primitive looking website. You can create a decent website with a nice wait list and everything, and then just go out with it.
Exactly. You can. I mean, we've heard the news of the AI companies these days, right? Who went bust. Like at the end of the day, they were actually developers building the solution on the background. And
oh my god, builder AI.
Exactly. So you could they raised like shit ton of money, man.
Really? So, my goodness.
So you could actually fake it till they make it, but they faked it.
But then they got caught before they made it.
They got caught before they made it. It's too late. They got comfortable. That's another problem. A lot of startup founders fall into.
They get comfortable.
Comfort. Comfort is one of the major killers of startups.
It's like once they reach like maybe a certain stage that they deem is successful enough. In a sense, I think being a part of a startup is like a lot about drive. It's like you believe in like your initial like problem, right? Like you can solve it.
Correct.
So like it's really pushing you. And like once you reach like maybe a certain stage, like some people like they get too comfortable.
I've got like 5-6 enterprise customers. I'm set for
I'm set for the next year plus.
But you very rarely see this in entrepreneur. These guys are always building something else. They'll start at venture 2 once venture 1 is stable.
Venture 2 comes out. Wow, that's crazy. I think you're right. Like adaptability is the most important thing in this entire system. What are some other things that you usually think like founders it's a repetitive mistake that founders make? Like you always see like a normal team is like it always comes out.
A repetitive. I mean what we covered earlier, right? Like what we talked about earlier. Not doing validation. They don't validate. Just assume. They basically assume and they make an ass out of themselves. So that's one of the common themes that we see them making or mistakes they make. Also, I guess not speaking enough or not putting themselves out there enough. Speaking to their customers. So the only people they should be concerned about is not like investors from day one, right? It's actually their customers.
Yeah, right.
And gone are the days when startups are all about blitz scaling. So you don't see a lot of Grab, a lot of like big scale ups operating these days, right? Right now you can actually, it's the day of actually bootstrapping. It's the time to bootstrap. Right now the environment is set up in a way that you can actually bootstrap, especially if you're a SaaS solution.
For sure.
You shouldn't be, success metric shouldn't be the ability to fundraise unless you are scaling your team like ridiculously fast.
Wow. Then coming back to like this thing, right, of validation, in a sense that what do you think, like in a sense that founders come up with ideas and everything, right? For someone who's trying to think like how do I like create an MVP or anything, right? What's your advice to them in a sense that like what they should look into?
If you were to
so it's let's say that you're a founder with like an idea right now, right? And to me, at least from a builder's point of view, because I'm the tech guy, right? We think that like, oh, this is the product. I need to code everything from start to scratch. Like it must have every feature. Every feature must be optimized. And I've heard this too, right? Like we started hiring like a few people as well, and then we see that like, the entire code needs to be written in a way that is scalable. Like, in a sense from day one. And that when I hear that, I'm like, no. Like, you need to start with an MVP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You pointed it out yourself, right? You start with MVP. You don't have to scale from day one. You just have to figure out who your ICP is, your ideal customer profile is, right? And then build towards them. And then you will realize somewhere or another, like, okay, actually, these are not my ideal customer. My customers are actually these people over here. And maybe I could pivot one or two sort of feature here in my existing product to actually address that. Those guys, right? And again, you get 1,001 feedback from the you speak to person one, I want this feature. Speak to person two, I want this feature. You speak to person three, I want that feature. Like, but you gotta figure out like what majority is saying, and then from there be discerning, and then make your own assumptions. Hypothesize, make your own assumptions. And then actually validate those assumptions.
And go back into the
it's like the process. The whole lean startup methodology, right?
I just keep going around again, like until you hit something. I think when you hit something, you know you hit something.
You know something. Money in the bank. Money in the bank, the moolah.
That's why.
People are paying for your products. That's when you know it's actually there's something there, right? Like once you. I bet you guys are super happy when once y'all made your first.
Oh my god, it was the best day of my life.
Your first, it was like, oh my god.
But even then, it's like, I think, even though you may have like gotten your first few clients, right, it's important to also know that it's not, you may not reach there yet. It's like, you are partway to your solution, but there's always still areas to optimize. So it's like continuously just keep on talking to people, like especially your current client base. It's like that's the best source of information. They're the ones using your solution.
I think another problem that startups have is the short-term sort of outlook to start, right? The next problem you have is how do you keep people on your platform?
The churn rate. Oh my god,
right? So holy shit, I launched my product, I'm so happy, I got my first paying customers. But then the next question you gotta ask yourself is how do I make it sticky enough that people are gonna stay here and they're gonna grow with my solution, right?
Right, exactly. I think that's the it's a harder challenge.
It's harder than getting the first client.
Exactly. But don't for the early stage founders, don't crack your head about this, right?
No. First, go out there. Like, I think show your face. Talk to as many people as you can. Get them on board, and then slowly you realize that churn becomes a big problem.
Another problem I had as well, actually, like when I wanted to start another venture last, I was like just looking around. Oh, somebody did this idea already. Somebody already did that idea. But it doesn't matter. You can have 3 people solving the same problem. It's just who does it better. Like there's Lyft, there's Ride, there's Grab.
There's
Gojek.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
There's so many different.
They're still making money. They're still
It's healthy competition.
Yeah. No, I think I saw like this thing came out of YC also. They said that like most people think, I think Paul Graham said this, like most people think that competition is what kills startup. But it's not. The number one reason they found out was like the founders stop. They're not fast enough.
Yeah.
They slow down, and then once they slow down, they break up.
Yeah.
That's the number one reason that companies fail, according to them at least. And so the competitors part, in a sense that like doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you this, like, do you have like any like pivot story that you saw like a company, pivoted and then like they were successful?
Yeah, I think back then when I was working at Startup X, there's this edutech company called Autodot.
Okay.
So really early, they were trying to make education more fun for their age group of students, right? Mainly primary school students.
Yeah.
Trying to make like the STEM subjects more fun.
Yeah.
So they were trying to gamify it.
Okay.
And then when COVID hit, actually it was a blessing for them because majority of them were spending their time online. They couldn't go to tuition classes physically.
Yes.
Yeah, so but their solution was still not really they still were hosting like physical enrichment sessions in tuition centers and smaller size groups, but just like what I would say is like a Kahoot kind of gamified version of it.
Yeah. Oh, so it's like they have to be there.
Yeah, I mean,
to
some
use it.
some of gamifying in that aspect, making it the Kahoot style of it.
Yeah.
And then they stumbled upon Roblox.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The game?
Yeah, the game Roblox.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how developer friendly Roblox is.
Yeah.
So people can just create different games.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true.
So they created like really cool, interactive, like fun science math games that has a storyline.
On Roblox.
Yeah, on Roblox.
Okay.
And then it kicked off for them, I guess. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Well, actually, that's quite smart. In a way.
Stumbling into these kind of things, right? Just keeping your finger on the pulse of like what's going on in your industry.
Yeah.
What are new methodologies, methods that other sort of people in your industry are also tapping onto.
Yeah.
What's the new trend? Like right now is the AI wave. Everybody's
Everybody's jumping in on it.
yeah, and it's growing at an exponential rate right now, right? Just figure out what is the best in class sort of solution right now. How can you build towards that?
Yeah.
Or if there's no best in class, how can I create a best in class solution?
Yeah. So in the era of generative AI, right, there are so many companies that are coming out, and if you're a company that uses large language models, right, the common question that you always get is like, how is this different from ChatGPT? Or like you're just like a ChatGPT wrapper, right?
Yeah.
And then I think most founders they struggle to answer that question.
Yeah.
So what is it like based on your experience like?
So I guess for on the topic of wrappers, right? The way to basically address this is what's your approach?
Yeah.
Are you diving deep into a specific vertical, a specific problem, or are you broad?
Yeah.
So for example, if you got a AI agent in the health tech space, assisting basically general practitioners with their everyday problems, right? Taking down notes from their patients, meetings, and then also digging down into any sort of like medication crossovers, allergies, those kind of things. Like if you build into a specific industry, specific vertical, I think that's the approach that some rappers made, and it took off, right?
Yeah.
But then you're gonna have, it's populated now, like in the medtech space, there's so many AI agents that are addressing this problem.
Yeah.
But that's what sets you. And again, competition is fine. You can, but that's one method I saw that the rappers working in, right?
Yeah.
Diving
So
into
pick an
specific
industry and go into it basically, get the data from the industry, make it specific.
Really deep. And then I guess in terms of horizontal wise, right? Like how many kind of problems can you address with your specific AI agent? You could just be a cloud, another GPT with better UI, right?
Yeah, actually that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we do have like recently in our cohort, there is this startup who actually were building their own LLM.
Yeah.
And basically the whole feature back there is they were building for like more research students and people who are building. So the UI is catered to those folks, like mind maps and everything built into the
Oh, so they have the mind maps on the same place.
Correct. Where you actually are prompting.
And that makes a huge difference, right? Someone using it for a specific use case. That thing, just that mind is technologically, yes, you can replicate it, but having it there and
it's just a
getting
UI
feedback,
play,
exactly.
It's just a UI play.
It makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Rappers do get a bad rap. If you do it right, then you see a lot of them basically doing really well for themselves.
Yeah. I think the common themes I see in a sense is that like either you need to be specific in terms of the core AI functionality for the industry, or need to be a specific UI for a certain kind of person. In a sense, that like researchers, for example.
Yeah, and I read somewhere basically the people who win this AI game right now is the people who actually have the best data sets. So curating the right data sets to build your model upon. And then having a most unique data set is what is going to set you apart.
For sure. Because no one else can compete with you because they cannot come up with that kind of accuracy, right? Because you have the
where you pulling the information from.
Exactly. Well, okay, Jit. Now let's go on to like our quick fire questions, basically.
So basically, this is a session where we just ask very quickly some questions, right? And then you just answer them. What's the first thing that came to your mind?
Okay.
All right. Okay. So the first question is, what is one founder habit that you secretly admire?
What's one founder habit that I secretly admire? I think the grit and determination. Not everybody has this, especially from Singapore. Everything is like handed down to you. In the US, you see people living away from home when they are 16, 17, 18, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so the grit and determination is those characteristics that I think really sets some founders apart from the other. They can take rejection on their chin and they just move on to the next one. Some founders are super butthurt after they got their first rejection.
Oh my god.
I cannot deal with it. I'm just gonna stop building because one person said no.
Okay. Alright, so the next question is, describe a great startup idea in 5 words, no buzzwords allowed.
A great startup idea in 5 words.
Yes, no buzzwords.
Ability to, how do you figure out whether to identify product market fit? Is it one word?
Product market, I consider as one word.
Okay.
They always write with a hyphen, so it's one word. Wow, actually, that's a very good one. If you can do that, I guess that's like, I think
but
everyone would use it.
you can't build product market fit from day one.
No,
it's a destination that is never doesn't arrive. But you always know what it is. Like,
You know when you reach there.
You can't quantify product market fit.
I agree 100%.
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling here and
No,
there.
it's money in the bank, right?
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
biggest indicator, right? That you got revenue and like how much you need to put in and how much revenue you generate. I think in product market fit is a clear line.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. So now moving on to our third question. Okay, so what is the weirdest pitch or DM you have ever received from a startup?
Weirdest pitch or DM that I received from a startup. I don't know. I think there's this guy who had some troubles in his personal dating life. And it's like, I want to build a solution to basically assist me with that. I don't like the rejection I got from the dating app. Let me build another dating app.
Oh my god. That is like, oh my goodness. So it's like his own personal life and then he is taking it out to like make an app. What was
I don't recall. It was quite bad back then, but I mean, I don't see it in the market now, so it's a good sign.
So that means that was his whole startup idea, or is it like he was doing something else and he suddenly texted you like, this is like, I said this problem.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's that. I think he probably validated it himself and realized that.
It's a no-go. That's interesting.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay. Alright, so now we'll move on to the last section. So basically, we have heard about how incubators can help like startups to, in a sense, grow from an idea into something amazing in like maybe a few years down the road. So, Jit, how can people follow like the Doc 71's works? How do they get updates or like learn more about it?
I mean, they can just enter in our website, blog71.co. Yeah, we've got incubation centers. We operate in 6 different countries. Yeah. On LinkedIn, you can just search up Blog71, Singapore Global. I mean, Blog71 Global, that's the LinkedIn handle. We're on Instagram. We've got different country folks on Instagram as well. So we'll just search Blog71 on Google. You'll find all our social trails there.
Definitely.
All right, definitely. Yeah. Great. Okay, so now our last question for the day is, if you can leave one nugget of wisdom on a post-it for the next aspiring founder, what would it be?
One nugget, or I think this saying that sticks to me, or I read somewhere that really every startup founder should put on their fridge or somewhere so that they get reminded every morning when they wake up. It's like you are your only limit, right? So whatever restrictions you put on yourself, you are your only limit. So you can do anything you set a mind to from day one, right? You can start a podcast.
Yeah, you can start a podcast.
You want to start a podcast, you can start a podcast. You wanna make $1,000 in sales, you can make $1,000 in sales. You're the only one who says no. And if you try and fail, then at least you did it, right? You know that you tested the limit.
Exactly. And you always learn something in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. It's always it's that positive.
It's that positive.
It's that positive because if you don't achieve it, you at least learn that it doesn't work, and that's not what you should do.
And that's learning itself.
It's like if you don't even step foot and like you put your foot out there to try out whatever the idea that comes to mind, right? You never know whether it works. Like who knows? It might have worked, but even if you don't try it, it definitely will never work.
That's why I just going back to what the conversations we had really early, right? I noticed a trend that I was like interviewing a couple of startups as well, applying for incubation. I noticed like there's a lot of incognito software developers. No, wait, but they're doing really well because they are building something like for example, a startup built something for the Notes app on a MacBook, right?
Okay.
And he's making crazy amount of sales himself. Building that software and doing sales by himself and going on Reddit to market. And getting the word out there, or guerrilla marketing style. And notice there's a lot of this style of founders as well. I think there's a famous one on Twitter as well, Nikita, if I'm not wrong.
Follow the handle.
So he's like crazy out there as well, like building multiple products and scaling them themselves. Like it's amazing if you got a skill set. You can do it. And right now with Gen AI, you can actually do it.
You can actually do it. That's the thing. They call it like the micro SaaS, right? That they create something, then they sell. And they do actually very well with very small teams. You're right, actually. That's a trend to look out for, I think.
All right. Okay. So thank you. A huge thanks again to Jit for keeping it real today. If something in this episode made you think, pause, or reflect, right, and rethink about your entrepreneurial journey, this is your cue to follow us on LinkedIn. We'll put it in the chat later. And the next conversation might be another one that will flip your whole perspective on how the startup life is in general. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
And thank you, Jit.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.